Hello there, Sarah from 17 once again. This is my Gravity Daze walkthrough. This is episode 6, it is the Lost City, and we are once again making our way towards the familiar waypoint, and unfortunately taking tourists with us as we affect gravity and do crazy dive kicks. And you see that just then? What is going on then? Whew. All I did there was hold forward and try to do the skate technique, and it kind of flipped the camera all crazy Super Monkey Ball style. But this is a rift plane, and the rift planes are something that I thought the game was going to do a lot more of than it did. So it's a little contrived in its thinking. There are certain aspects of the town that have been segregated off. I can't really tell you why. I might have paid attention when they tried to answer it, but I don't think it was much of a compelling reason. But suffice to say, certain aspects of the main hub world, which is that city that we're in, has been isolated away, and we go into these rift planes and we do things, and those city parts come back. It's very video gamey, and the cool thing about the planes are every time you go into them, they're a chain of combat events, platforming, and they usually have a completely different aesthetic to anything you've seen so far. So you'll notice this is kind of all crazy, floating in this awesome like orange burning sky, and there are platforms suspended, there are links of geometry leading to next areas, and there are these interesting slipstreams of purple goodness that go from these flowers, and the flowers are a waypoint system. You go to a platform, a bunch of Nevi. I called them Navi in the last video, that's not cool. Isn't those blue dudes from Avatar? I hope you understood what I meant. The Nevi, or Nevi, or Nevi, whatever. Interesting name for dumbass creatures. But I suppose I couldn't call them like black blob men. It's not as catchy. But you go to a platform, a bunch of these dudes turn up, there'll be a number in the top right corner. Once you kill all of them, the flower will activate and it'll point you in the right direction. It'll also say Nevi defeated like that. Once they're all defeated, we get to do some traversal. You'll notice that there's also those green canisters, jewel things. They will replenish life. Those crazy tomb, Ark of the Covenant things that you see that are blue, they replenish gravity, and then the gems give you the ability to upgrade and do certain instances around the city. So one of the coolest features of these rift planes is that you're going to be picking up a ton of gems just by doing them. So it's going to enable a player such as myself, who's trying to get through this game quite quickly so I can make a walkthrough, to upgrade a little bit more than I normally would if there wasn't so many readily available. And right now we are dropkicking 2 of the standard enemies. These are kind of upgraded. He has 2 weak points, but he's covered in a shell that you have to attack to destroy. You can attack it with physical, you can attack it by throwing trash at it and gravity, and once it's broken you can hit his weak point. The other creature is a long-nosed creature that charges at you like a bull, and you dodge its charge and you attack it in the behind. This is a similar creature to that, only instead of charging it hops around like a frog. Not too sure if they're meant to represent different animal types, these particular creatures, but once you see them, once you see what they're capable of doing, you're able to realise what you have to do, and then you can beat them. Because a lot of the enemies are kind of a rock, paper, scissors kind of situation. Some of them you need to dodge and then attack, others you can attack immediately, some you need to break before you can get the crit on them. Others are a little bit more exotic, but you can kill them by being aggressive. And I just recommend getting really good at doing the dive kick into dive kick setups, which this ain't Street Fighter, guys. You do not have to space them. You know, you do not have to do anything too crazy to try and get that ever rare but always useful cross-up dive kick that should not cross up, but it somehow managed to, because you got it really deep. You don't need to do any of that kind of precision. This is straight up just put that gravity circle on people's faces and kick their jaw off. And do some floating. So what can you expect if you are to go near this game / pick it up? What would you say are the qualities, and what would you say are the cons when it comes to Gravity Daze? So the game offers you 21 episodes, which are anything between 4 to 10 minutes. They're generally shorter rather than longer, and there is a multitude of bosses throughout that, which are not the most challenging, but they're interesting, and they do demand slightly different requirements of the player. You also have the ability to explore an entire sandbox of the city and all the locales that you're going to be going to. You have these alternate adventure, platforming action subspace systems, which are these rift planes. There are secret bosses in these rift planes that you can find and come up against, which are a little bit more challenging than anything in the game. But even then, they're not gonna... It's not like something from a crazy game, it's just pretty standard stuff. There is a full upgrade path, which you can work towards getting by collecting all the crazy purple jewels, and if you're a collectibles kind of guy, the game has a ton of those jewels to find. It's very similar to the flags in Assassin's Creed, or the... what were those power gems in Crackdown called that you could pick up, where there was fucking billions of them? If you like picking up shiny things, then this is a game that might be for you. On top of that, there is no difficulty settings, so there's no real reason to replay the game. There are challenges that you can do where you compete against certain restrictions to get high scores, which if you're into that kind of thing, you might find a couple of hours of enjoyment, but I don't see it having too many legs because it didn't seem that interesting to me. Of course, I'm not much of a challenge type of person unless I actually think it's challenging, and my idea of challenge and game developers' idea of challenge is often two very different things, so it's 100% down to preference at that point. But the pros of this game, it's really fun. Of a base level, it's super fun. It moves at a quick pace. It's easy to control, but there's enough minutia to the controls that you can learn to be more competent at playing it. It's constantly shifting at what you're expected to do and what you're doing as the player. And I never at one point got bored of doing any one given task because I always felt like we were doing something in a different place. So I think that's a great strength of the game. A couple of criticisms to kind of even this out. It's nowhere near as deep as it could have been, and if it was more complex in its combat, in its requirement on the player, in its abilities, I think it would be a considerably better game and there'd be a lot more replay value. Additionally, if it had any kind of traditional difficulty, it would give you more options to replay it. It would also make it more demanding on the player and make it more interesting for the people who are not the biggest fan of playing games that don't kill you every 5 seconds. The story in this game, while whimsical and completely ridiculous and all over the place, is lacking in a lot of areas of closure. So if you're looking to find out a lot of the answers, this is not really the game for you because it's going to hide a lot of them from you for sequel bait, for that Japanese obscureness and just general qualms with storytelling. Additionally, there is certain features that get a little bit annoying, it must be told. The fact that Cat doesn't move immediately after you've told her to change direction in mid-air can be a little frustrating because it makes the game feel unresponsive and it makes you a little bit more vulnerable than I wish you were at those times. A lot of the enemies and bosses are reused quite a lot, so if you're looking for, a true evolution of things, you're not really going to get too much of that. Even though they do mix it up enough for it not to be too noticeable, but you will notice that this boss that I'm fighting now is going to become a normal enemy at some points. And, instances where you're taking on a bunch of enemies that you've fought quite a lot before. But I think I should add, as I take a big hit there off him, his weakness is below him, and you can do some really damaging stuff here, but I'm pressing the wrong button. That move there is that special. It recharges over time, and you'll notice when it's recharged, because in the top left there will be a red jewel in the middle of my gravity gauge. Incredibly powerful tool against bosses. I don't recommend you upgrade any of them though. Upgrade the one that you prefer personally, because I think each of them has its own uses, and the upgrades don't seem to affect them too much. I think the rock throwing special ability is perhaps the best one. The black hole seems amazing until you use it on a boss that it does no damage against, and that's kind of the rule of thumb with these abilities. They seem amazing until you hit a boss who's not weak to it. But I suppose a final criticism, to kind of top it all off, would be the game's length. Because there is no real incentives to replay it, and there is a staggering lack of challenge when it comes to real demand on the player, this game can be beaten very quickly, and there's not all that much of an incentive to come back to it. So, as I said earlier, I do think that this is a fantastic rental more than a buy, but I do think that there is enough here for people to enjoy and want to play again if they really dig the kind of game it is. Oh, additionally folks, the finisher there, The reason I waited to use my special move before I got the finisher is because there are times on the game where it doesn't detect the finisher, it does the special move, and the boss will get their life back. That is a very finicky part of a mechanic that I don't like, but it only happens rarely when the detection fails, and I don't know why it does that, but it happens, it's video games. Thank you very much for watching, and you take care now.